students, welcome to the lecture on audio-video aids and effective presentations. And after this lecture, we will be able to learn the following objectives. Understand the concept of market segmentation. Explain the service delivery. Describe the issues in marketing services. Explain the 7 P's of extended services marketing mix. Let's start with a brief introduction to audio-video aids and effective presentations. Communication is the most important tool of social existence and survival. An individual who is able to put his point across effectively often lands up being successful in his endeavors. Communication is a complex process and needs to be planned in such a manner that the information being given is not only heard attentively at the other end, but is also remembered. In other words, communication should make a long-lasting impact on the people in question. One of the most important tools of effective communication is the use of various visual aids in order to enable a more in-depth understanding of the subject. What we see does actually have a more profound effect on our ability to grasp information, rather than what we read or what we listen to. A business communication presentation is an informal presentation, usually in the form of PowerPoint slides, that is accompanied by a brief speech. Presentations can have many different objectives, ranging from marketing and advertising to research and measurement or employee engagement. Presentations can be given to audiences ranging from a small group of 10 to 15 colleagues to a conference room filled with several hundred potential clients. Let us now discuss the concept of audio-video aids and effective presentations. Audio-video aids in business communication and training help in numerous ways. Each individual understands and retains information differently, which is why professional training organizations use multiple audio and visual tools during presentation sessions. This type of session is commonly known as multimedia presentation, which can include written, visual, auditory, and sometimes interactive methods.
Designing effective visual aids. So, you need to make some visual aids to enhance your presentation. After you have planned your content, it's time to think about how you will present it. First, decide which software to use. Most students use PowerPoint, but there are other options, such as Prezi, and you can consider that. This video uses PowerPoint, but the same ideas can be used in Prezis or other types of software. Okay, when it comes to designing your PowerPoint, there are some main points to keep in mind. You should start with choosing a background and font. It's better to avoid using bright colors as they can not only be distracting, but also difficult to see from a distance. Instead, choose a light background with dark, simple font, or a dark background with a light font. You should use a minimum of at least size 28 font. Remember that the person in the back of the room has to be able to see the text as well. Also, in a group presentation, you should have a consistent design for all slides. The next thing to consider is the text itself. Don't overload the slide with too many details. Writing lots of information in a PowerPoint presentation can be distracting and frustrating for the audience. Within seconds of your presentation starting, you are likely to lose the audience's attention. They won't be listening to you, they'll be trying to read all the information on the slide. Keep in mind, the PowerPoint should only guide your speaking, not replace it. Instead, choose only key points to highlight your information. You should not write in full sentences or paragraphs. Instead, choose key points and write them in bullet points. 3 to 5 bullet points on each slide will do. Use noun phrases and parallel structures. This makes your points far more effective. PowerPoints are more interesting to your audience if you include images such as pictures, charts, and graphs. But don't overdo it. Use charts and graphs to illustrate data and facts. People are more likely to remember and understand the information in that form, rather than listing numbers in a table. Pictures are always effective and can help explain complex concepts, but use them sparingly. Choose appropriate pictures and remember that you need to have permission to use them. All pictures should show the source. Another thing to consider when creating a PowerPoint is limiting the use of special effects and graphics, as they can be quite distracting. The audience is there to hear what you have to say, not to look at your PowerPoint slide. Remember, in academic presentations, you need to provide in-text references on slides when you're citing other sources, and then you need to provide a reference list on your final slide. Use the right referencing system for your subject, APA or IEEE, for example. You can even create a QR code at the end of your presentation as a way to distribute your reference list to the audience. Finally, make sure that your language is correct. Proofread the slides for any overlooked spelling and grammatical errors.
Business presentation skills are the combined attributes that contribute to a clear, informative, and if appropriate, persuasive business presentation. These skills may, depending on circumstances, include widely ranging abilities. Some of the most often used business presentation skills are crafting and presenting a speech, creating and disseminating visual aids and training materials, and using presentation software or online applications to contact your audience. Improving business training skills can happen through practice, changing your approach, and learning something new or getting training or instruction. Information retention. Retention of information 3 days after a meeting or other event is 6 times greater when information is presented by visual and oral means than when the information is presented by the spoken word alone. Visual aids and time saving. Using visual aids can save your business time, especially if the subject contains information that may be too lengthy for written or oral communication. Auditory aids. The type of auditory aid used in your multimedia presentation is most likely based on your budget, but the effectiveness of each type must be considered. Handouts. Handouts serve to reinforce oral and visual components and can go into further detail if desired or warranted. Importance of engagement. Using multiple mediums during presentations can help individuals and groups to interact and become part of the session. Select and use visual aids effectively. Because we live in a time when communication is visual and verbal, visual aids that reinforce your meaning can enhance any oral presentation. Many researches have shown that oral presentation that use visuals are more persuasive, more interesting, more credible, and more professional. Example, more effective than presentations without such aids. The benefits of using visual aids include: they help your audience understand your ideas. They help the audience follow your argument, your train of thought. They make your presentation more memorable and thus increase the chances that what you said will be remembered. Setting up your visual aids. Set up all your visual aids yourself unless you need help with large or heavy objects. Using your visual aids. Even when you are using a visual aid, it is important that you talk to the audience. Guidelines for using visual aids. Many of the guidelines for using visual aids in oral presentations mirror those for written documents. They need to fit the needs of the audience. They must be simple, they must be clear and easy to understand. How many visual aids should one use? Some kinds of oral presentations will require one kind of visual aid. Presentations conveying complex information may require several kinds of visual aids. What type of visual aids should one use? You can use drawings, graphs, props, and objects, a blackboard with an outline, charts, demonstrations, pictures, statistics, cartoons, photographs, maps, etc. How does one design effective visual aids? Because your visual aids will be seen while the audience is listening to you, you will need to be sure that all visuals are as simple as possible and as easy to read. Avoid too much information on any single visual. Use boldface type in a font size that can be easily read. Use sans serif type because it produces a sharper image for slides, and limit the fonts you use to 2 per visual. Avoid all caps. Use a type size and font that contrasts distinctly with the background. Avoid visuals that use too many colors, more than 4 on any one aid. How does one use visual aids effectively? The key to using graphics and visual aids effectively requires using them so that they make the maximum impact. Classification of audio-video aids. There are many different types of visual aids. The advice will help you make the most of these most commonly used. White or blackboard. White or blackboards can be very useful to help explain the sequence of ideas or routines, particularly in the sciences. Paper handouts. Handouts are incredibly useful. Flip chart. A flip chart is a large pad of paper on a stand. Video, DVD, or VHS. Video gives you a chance to show stimulating visual information. Artifacts or props. Sometimes it can be very useful to use artifacts or props when making a presentation. Think of the safety routine on an airplane when the steward shows you how to use the safety equipment. Did you know? According to a study conducted by psychologist Albert Mehrabian, about 93% of effective spoken communication happens by various factors, other than words. Now we will study about formal and informal presentations. An oral presentation can be short and to the point. Example, an update for a team or department meeting. But it can also be complex. Example, orchestrating an elaborate pitch that includes various media, reports, and several speakers. Normally, public speaking classes for professionals and even texts for oral presentations prepare you to give formal talks that 1. Present the findings of research to a group of experts in fairly academic style. 2. Speak to the public about corporate issues and hazards. And 3. Sell products or services to clients. But they rarely handle complex group presentations or presentations to in-house meetings. Audience analysis. Try to understand and manage the distance between speaker and listeners. Speaking success is related to a careful managing of the distance between speaker and listeners. Let's know about preparation of presentations. Most people feel nervous about giving presentations. Feeling well prepared and practiced will give you confidence in yourself and your material. It offers advice on preparing your presentation. It includes thinking about your audience, planning your presentation, notes, handouts, and visual aids, good slide design. Thinking about your audience. A presentation is an active communication between you and your audience. Tailor your presentation to suit your audience and their levels of knowledge. Planning your presentation. It is difficult to take a lot of detailed information when listening. Therefore, it is very important that your presentation has a clear structure so your audience can follow it. What to avoid. The most common mistake with presentations is trying to cram too much information. You either end up talking too fast or overrunning the time limit. Notes, handouts, and visual aids. Many people are tempted to write their presentation out fully and read it aloud, but this is not enjoyable for the speaker or the audience. It is hard to get vocal expression and connection with the audience when reading aloud, and a written script is often more stilted and formal than natural speech. Good slide design. Keep your slides simple, uncluttered, and easy to read. Just because you can have music, moving graphics, and bullet points whizzing in and out does not mean you have to. But if you are confident about your technical ability, some simple animation can be very effective. Guidelines. PowerPoint used in direct projection mode is a versatile medium to aid the giving of presentations and lectures. By its very nature, software like this can be used well or badly. Keep the guidelines in mind in terms of font size. A. The larger the better. Remember, your slides must be readable, even at the back of the room. B. Verdana 40 point is a good title size. C. Verdana 32 point is a good subtitle or bullet point size. D. Content text should be no smaller than Verdana 24 point. Smaller text will be unreadable from beyond 8 to 10 feet, which will be only the front row in most meeting rooms. Keep the guidelines in mind in terms of background. A. Use the same background on each slide. B. No logo slides or institution-specific templates may be used except on first and last slides. C. Avoid white backgrounds. The white screen can be blinding in a dark room. D. Dark slides with light-colored text, not white, work best. Keep the guidelines in mind in terms of font colors. A. Use color and fonts for interest and variety, but do not use too many of each as the slides may become confusing. B. Ideally, lettering should be light-colored on a dark-colored background. C. Reds and oranges are high energy, but it can be difficult to stay focused on. D. Greens, blues, and browns are mellower, but not as attention-grabbing. E. Reds and greens can be difficult to see for those who are colorblind. Graphs and charts should be kept simple, with large lettering and clearly marked axes, etc. A. Use colored arrows to direct the audience's attention to particular parts of charts, especially for complicated figures. For figures created in charting programs and then exported to PowerPoint, be sure that the output fonts and line widths are legible once the image is scaled with PowerPoint. B. If you have a complicated chart, it is a good idea to add statistics directly onto the chart and to provide the details of the graph orally. Body language is a part of nonverbal language. It includes things like stance, gestures, facial expressions, and even small things that are barely perceptible, like a brief shrug of the shoulder or nod of the head. We frequently communicate both bodily and verbally, and an estimated 70% of what we communicate may be nonverbal. Nonverbal language is an even bigger category, which includes things like tone of voice. There are many ways to learn to interpret body language, but it must be understood that these are frequently specific to a culture. For instance, in the US, we wave goodbye with the palm facing the person we are waving to, and the fingers may be open and close. In other cultures, waving goodbye may occur with the hand palm up to the sky and the fingers opening and closing. To people in the US, this might look like a gesture asking someone to approach rather than a wave goodbye. Body language at the workplace. It is important to exhibit a positive body language at the workplace to enhance a healthy work environment, and also to maintain a good working relationship with your immediate superiors and colleagues.
Hi, I'm Faye Desmoichant of Social Skills, here to teach you about body language basics. So many people say that your body speaks much more loudly than your words speak, and it has quite a bit of truth. It's really important that as you speak, you exhibit great body language. The most important aspects of your body language are number one, your shoulders, and where your shoulders are positioned as you speak to other people. So your shoulders could be like this, or they could be like this. And that slight change makes an enormous difference in what your body is saying about you. This little change could make me seem like I'm insecure or don't have much confidence, but moving my shoulders up changes the entire dynamic of how I'm coming across. Also, a really important part of your body language is your hands and what you're doing with your hands. Now, some people have a really hard time with what to do with their hands as they're speaking. If you have a hard time with it, what I suggest is if you're sitting, just putting your hands in your lap, or if you're standing, just making sure that they're at your sides or folded in front of you. A lot of people have a hard time with playing with things, with playing with bracelets, with playing with hair, fumbling with their pockets. So be aware as you speak next time of what your hands are doing. Where are your hands? Are they stationary? Or you can ask someone else to make this assessment for you. Have a conversation with them and ask them to keep an eye on where your hands are during the conversation. Another important element of your body language is the fact that you need to be standing still. So if you're moving during a conversation, that's going to give off the impression that you're nervous or that you're uncomfortable during the conversation. So be sure that you're standing stationary and that you're not moving around as you're talking. And your feet as you're talking. You don't want to be moving your feet around or lifting up your knee or moving your feet around. You want to make sure that those are stationary as well. The whole idea is that you don't want to distract someone while they're speaking or while you're speaking. Not only is it distracting, but it can make you come across as insecure, less than confident, or even uncomfortable during a conversation. You definitely don't want to give off that impression. So your body language speaks a great deal. You want to make sure that you have great body language as you're communicating and speaking with other people. It's probably one of the most important elements to making a good first impression.
Visual sense is so active in humans that it not only enables us to cognize information at a much faster rate, but it also helps us memorize the same for a longer period of time. These include the tone of the speaker, facial expressions, body language, and so on. Moreover, several studies also indicate that the human brain has a power to decipher visual imagery much faster than language, and hence such communications have a far-reaching impact on the human mind. Students can become bored sitting in a classroom for hours. Teaching aids can provide a welcome break for students who have been sitting for a while and listening to an instructor lecture in front of the room. Educators can use various teaching aids besides textbooks to pick students' interest and demonstrate how things work. Visual aids such as whiteboards or chalkboards, charts, maps, flashcards, and calendars are commonly used. Presentation tools such as bulletin boards, audiovisual equipment, and overhead projectors are also utilized frequently among the multimedia displays and computers. Types of visual aids. Different types of visual aids are used by the speaker, orator, in order to make the audience understand with clarity the information that he/she wants to communicate. The different types of visual help or aids used are actual objects and/or models can be used to make the audience see for themselves what is being spoken about. Infographics can be used so that a lot of information can be conveyed through graphical representations. Infographic tools include maps, tables, charts, and graphs. Actual photographs of the subject in question also help to a great extent in establishing effective communication. Many times, in the absence of real photographs, diagrams and sketches can also be used for conveying important information. Videos are one of the best audiovisual aids, which enable people to actually see how things happen, thus making them understand the subject even more deeply. Power of visual communication. The use of visual resources plays a significant role in establishing an effective and fruitful communication. Here's why visual aids prove to be powerful tools. Enhancing the presentation. Visual aids help to add an extra element of interest to the presentation. Memorizing. We remember what we see more than what we do not. Repetition of information. The power to grasp information varies from person to person. Avoiding distractions. The use of aids concentrates the attention of the listeners on one particular object, which becomes a focal point. Systemizing communication. Visual resources enable the speaker to systematically organize large chunks of information into smaller, more interactive bites. Now in the end, let us summarize what we have learned in this lecture. Audio-video aids in business communication and training help in numerous ways. Each individual understands and retains information differently, which is why professional training organizations use multiple audio and visual tools during presentation sessions. Business presentation skills are the combined attributes that contribute to a clear, informative, and if appropriate, persuasive business presentation. Most people feel nervous about giving presentations. Feeling well prepared and practiced will give you confidence in yourself and your material. PowerPoint, used in direct projection mode, is a versatile medium to aid giving of presentations and lectures.